Hello, I'm Sister Kathleen, and I wish you a lovely day wherever you are. As you can see, it's a beautiful day here, and this time I'm able to find a spot where we can have our church in the background as I talk. Depends on the time of day whether that will work. So anyway, here we are. That's our Abbey Church in the background. The ground's a little uneven here, so the church looks tilted when I'm straight. But anyway, it's a beautiful church and a beautiful day. So as we go to press here, we just finished having 2 political conventions in the last couple of weeks. And we know that at this time, really not that unusually, but at this time, political passions run high. And we hear a lot of talk for years now, really, about polarization in our country and in our society. And there's understandable concern about that. It makes it more difficult to move forward when there are very strong differences of opinion, very different views maybe of how things should be. And so that can increase our anxiety. If I feel very clearly that this is the way forward and this is what's going to be helpful for our society, it's very disappointing, more than that even, can make us very unhappy when it looks so clearly that things are going in the opposite direction, the very direction that I think is going to make things worse, more difficult. Now, the reality, of course, is it's not that unusual for there to be polarization about political matters. There's probably more than there has been at times in the past, really undoubtedly. But when you study history and look at the early decades, many decades of our country's history, and there was quite strong polarization, and yet we survived, we went forward. So maybe one thing to help first is to just realize polarization isn't the end of the world. We look back at what's happened historically, and it all looks so obviously that was how it was going to go. Well, that was not how it felt to anyone at the time. It felt just as difficult, just as potentially everything's going down the tubes to people in the past as it can to us. But perhaps a more important thing is we do want to level the tension level, to lessen the tension level. We want to be a good influence in our society ourselves. So personally, what can we do to, you might say, decrease the polarization? Well, one potential solution we all like is everybody should agree with my point of view. That's a great one. Let's all think the same way. And then we won't have this polarization. If only they would see the light. Well, I'm in what I think of as a fortunate position of knowing intelligent, thoughtful people on both sides of the political spectrum, people whose wisdom, whose moral values I respect highly and with good reason. And so that automatically shows me how it really is possible to be a good, thoughtful, wise person and see things quite differently. One hears the sad things where polarization gets carried away, especially is when it starts making rifts in relationships, when people stop speaking to each other or behave really badly to one another or cut one another off. And I've heard stories about that, again, on different sides of the political spectrum. It's not a one-sided affair. So what can we do to help things? Well, one thing we can obviously do, and I'm sure many try to do, and that is to speak respectfully, to speak respectfully to another person who is expressing their political point of view. Also, though, to speak respectfully of other political points of view. Now, for example, I may not know the political point of view of someone I'm speaking to, and it can be hurtful if I assume that I know their point of view, because of course any right-minded person sees things the way I do. And so I speak in such a way as if I'm assuming their political beliefs are in line with mine. That may not be the case, and it can be very hurtful to that person. But perhaps more importantly, also, when we do speak of the points of view of other people, of ideas, of persons, of political leanings, to speak of them really with respect. Because if the person I'm speaking to holds the ideas or respects the persons, or at least wants the persons to be elected or not elected that I'm speaking about, and if I speak disparagingly about those, I'm really speaking disparagingly about the person in front of me who agrees with those ideas. So to really speak in a respectful way. And in some ways that means obviously we have to not be speaking with quite as much passion, with maybe a little bit more humility. When we know wise people, we know that they are not always totally sure that their ideas are necessarily the right ones. And so to have a little bit of humility maybe about our political ideas. But above all, to speak with love, and that means to speak with respect. So may God bless us all, and may He bring us all together into His kingdom.